Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Danganronpa 2 with me, Phantom Zwei. More Danganronpa 2, and yet not continuing the main story because that is concluded. We are now going to be taking a look at Danganronpa IF, a novelization here, written by that amazing writer. I assume they're talking about the writer for Danganronpa 1. I don't really know. I didn't look it up. Sorry. Didn't want to get anything spoiled is basically what it boils down to, because that's what these games have going for them more than anything, right? I want to go in here, I want to see what happens myself. And you guys, join me for the ride if you please, if you're interested. Let's do it. Danganronpa IF. Character introduction? Sure. Makoto Nai. Okay, this is basically if you haven't played Danganronpa 1. He's a typical high school student with absolutely no remarkable talents or characteristics. He was randomly selected to attend the Hope Tea Academy from a pool of unremarkable students. Kiyotaka Ishimaru, crying as usual. Poor guy. He was the head of the Public Morals Committee at his previous high school, a noted college prep school. He is extremely strict towards lazy people and anyone who makes fun of working hard. Byakuya Togami, a member of the family which controls the Togami Corporation, an international mega-conglomerate. As the heir of the family business, he was harshly raised to prepare for his duties. Mondo Owada. At one point, he led the biggest biker gang in Japan. He's a classic rebel with a heart of gold and has his own strong sense of justice. He also has an undying admiration for his older brother. Leon Kawada. Despite his refusal to practice, he has enough natural talent that pro baseball scouts have already started courting him. Even though he's kind of obnoxious, it's hard to hate him. Hifumi Yamada. He has a certain charisma within the fanfiction industry and is very proud of the following that he's cultivated. At a local high school festival, he sold over 10,000 copies of his latest creation, a stunning achievement by any measure. Yasuhiro Hagakure. He relies on his own intuition to form his predictions, resulting in an accuracy rate of about 30%. He's been hailed back a few times. Sayaka Maizono, the ultimate pop sensation. She's a lead singer in a world-famous pop group. Though she is the darling of a generation, she's managed to maintain her sweet, down-to-earth nature. Kyoko Kirigiri. She's the only student at the school whose ultimate talent is unknown. She carries an intense beauty, but her past and thoughts are shrouded in mystery. Aoi Asahina, the ultimate swimming pro, a natural-born athlete. Her main focus is swimming, but at her old school, she also competed in volleyball, track, and more. She has a smiling, enthusiastic nature that helps keep others in high spirits, and loves donuts. Toko Fukawa. Despite her age, she's already a successful novelist. In actuality, she has a personality disorder that manifests itself as the serial killer personality known as Genocide Jack. Sakura Ogami. Her father taught her martial arts since she was a little girl, and she has now become the strongest human being on Earth. Celestia Ludenberg, the ultimate gambler. Her petite Lolita appearance bellies her haughty temperament and a sharp, caustic tongue. She's a master of deceit. Her face is utterly inscrutable. She is Japanese, in case you were wondering. And in fact, we know her name, I believe it was Taiko Yasuhiro in the end. Junko Enoshima, the ultimate fashionista and ultimate despair. She's a charismatic model who has graced the covers of the most popular youth fashion magazines. However, her true identity is ... Chihiro Fujisaki, the ultimate programmer. She's very quiet, but has extraordinary talent when it comes to computers. Mukuro Ikusawa, the ultimate soldier. A combat specialist who has mastered handling various weapons. Ever since she was a child, she has had a special interest in mystery stories and is completely engrossed by them. Alrighty. From the beginning, let's do this. If Monokuma Theater. Monokuma's monologue. Okay, so this is going to be a full-screen visual novel type thing. A la, like Fate's Stay Night. The world... Alright, I guess this would be Monokuma. The world is full of ifs. If Adam hadn't tied the knot with Eve, society as we know it would have never been born. The world that everyone lives in is just one outcome among countless ifs, and will continue to be a muddled world overflowing with infinite ifs. In other words, the, oh gosh, what's it called? The multiverse theory, you know, like, parallel worlds theory, where basically at every point in decision, all universes that could be and are, you know, like our own reality as well as every other possible reality that could exist actually exist. Anyway, I forget exactly the name for it, but ifs is what's in miso soup, you know. What lies beyond this point is a scary world filled with iffy stepfathers who abandon their families. A Klein bottle where the inside and outside are filled with uncertainty. Ah, but don't break it, okay? It'd be so expensive, there'd be no way you'd ever be able to pay me back. But no matter how you look at it, ifs are simply words like any other. No matter how hypothetical the story may be, the future is the only thing that's truly foggy. And the past is more solid than a frozen banana. You can't change a conclusion that has already happened. Even if you see a world that may have existed, it wouldn't affect the people living in reality. In other words, do not consider this canon. Because ifs is only if, after all. Even if a parallel world exists where a particular if actually happened, humans cannot cross the boundaries between worlds that easily. No matter how far if goes, it will always be a what-if scenario. Do you really want to see that? You got some sick interests. Don't you think that's an insult to Makoto and the others after the tragedy they overcame? Though, as far as I'm concerned, I'll still insult them. If you're still gonna look at if, I think it's better if you view the outside of the Klein bottle first. It might be better if you view the ending of a video game called Danganronpa, Trigger Happy Havoc. In other words, you probably don't want to see this if you haven't completed the main game of the original Danganronpa. Of course, at this point, if you've seen my Danganronpa 2 playthrough, you've already had so much of the first game spoiled for you. Probably doesn't matter too much, but anyway. Try to play it multiple times and spend your free time with Junko Enoshima at least 3 times, too. I've done that, but we didn't do that in the LP series, unfortunately. It may be ideal if you can collect all the items and movies, too. But if you guys have come this far, I'm sure you've already done that. Still, I'd buy the game if I were you. I do recommend it. I'd actually buy at least 2 copies if I were you. Maybe not. The curtain lowers. Trigger Happy Havoc, Danganronpa If. The button of hope and the tragic warriors of despair. What should I do with this? Makoto Naegi was at a loss. Despite his hesitation, his situation was extremely simple and composed of 3 key factors. The first factor was that Makoto was currently locked inside a school. Hope's Peak Academy is a school for the privileged elite, and each student attending possesses ultimate talent. Makoto was chosen to attend Hope's Peak Academy by a lottery held to select the ultimate lucky student. When he arrived for his first day of school, he immediately lost consciousness, and when he woke up, he saw all exits and windows had been sealed shut. The next factor was Monokuma, a mysterious robot bear being operated by the mastermind, and the announcement he made to all the students. You'll be living your whole life... I should do the Monokuma voice. You'll be living your whole life in this academy, he declared. If you want to leave, then kill someone and become the Blackened. This strange, remote-controlled robot was telling Makoto and his fellow Ultimates to start killing each other in exchange for their freedom. They learned that more than one Monokuma exists, and that each one contains a bomb to prevent anyone from attacking them. On top of that, Monokuma announced that anyone who attempted to harm him would receive punishment. The third and final factor was the red button that Makoto was currently holding in his hand. The words, "Escape button," were crudely written on this button in marker. And though the first 2 factors were certainly causes for panic, Makoto only seemed at a loss over the third. During his free time, Makoto noticed that the school store was open, and his curiosity got the better of him. He was overwhelmed by the disjointed atmosphere upon entering, but his attention soon focused on the strange vending machine. The words mono machine were written on it, and it seemed to accept the strange bear-patterned coins they sometimes found inside the school. It seemed like a bad idea, but Makoto thought there might be a chance that this machine could dispense some way of escaping the school. Dispense, rather. And so he inserted the only coin he had into the coin slot. And the result was the escape button mentioned earlier. Ultimate lucky student indeed. There's a limit to how much you can tease us. Maybe the mastermind who trapped us in here is making a cruel joke. These thoughts filled Makoto's mind, and he began to feel deeply discouraged. However, there's always a chance, right? Makoto was just an ordinary boy, and he only gained entry into Hope's Peak Academy through a lottery to find the ultimate lucky student. Maybe that luck was the real deal. If this button is real, maybe I can let Sayaka... Makoto took a deep, slow breath and pressed the button. Okay, so this is when everyone is still alive at the beginning of the game, and he's basically obsessed with Sayaka, because they've been talking a lot early on in the game. So he's thinking about using the button to let Sayaka out if it's real. I see. Instantly, pain burst inside his entire body. Ugh! Makoto's arms and legs went limp as he lost his balance and fell to the floor in a crumpled heap. As he breathed heavily, it dawned on him what had just happened. I got electrocuted? He looked down at the button in his hand and noticed a small needle sticking out of it. Makoto quickly surmised that an electric current must have been running through it. After regaining enough of his strength to stand back up, Makoto thought about it once again. I should have known. It was a fake. Just how sick and twisted was the mastermind? My head still feels a little woozy. I should go back to my room and rest today. With that in mind, Makoto walked out of the school store with slow, careful steps. But Makoto didn't know yet. If the escape button really was a fake, it would have been an act of mercy from the mastermind. A small, bear-shaped shadow began moving around the inside of the now empty school store. The shadow, Monokuma, stood before the mono machine as it stared at it silently. But after some time had passed, he began to laugh, a cold, hollow laugh, utterly devoid of emotion. Despite the fact that he was alone, Monokuma began to talk, almost as if he were speaking to someone. Perhaps Monokuma was talking directly to the mastermind controlling him. I only put that in the mono machine because I thought it'd be interesting if one of the last few survivors happened to win it. But with a success rate of 0.0000001%, I never actually thought anyone would win it. Perhaps I should have expected the ultimate lucky... Oh, he's still talking. Perhaps I should have expected the ultimate lucky student to overcome such impossible odds. Monokuma started blushing and breathing heavily for no apparent reason. A robot like Monokuma doesn't need to breathe, but because his technology is super advanced, he can express himself like a living creature. Makoto was chosen through a lottery, and now he's won the escape button through a lottery. This is obviously impossible, right? Is this what a miracle is? Is this all systems go towards escaping? Is something that defies all common sense about to come crashing into my world? Well, even though I don't really want this at all, I'm starting to enjoy this new sensation. We'll be back after all these commercials. Monokuma's internal machinery began running at full capacity, and his facial expressions began changing more smoothly than any humans could. Suddenly, his expressions immediately stopped, and he whispered something through his speakers. But is this really good luck? That's probably actually Junko directly, not Monokuma, because it seems like Monokuma is autonomous. Because, I mean, Monokuma has said, I'm not just a teddy bear, I'm Monokuma, blah blah blah. I mean, who knows? It's really hard to say at this point, but it definitely seems like there's more to Monokuma than just being controlled by the mastermind. Anyway. After muttering something so ominous, Monokuma's loud screeching laughter rang jarringly throughout the room. The situation that was about to unfold contained two conflicting emotions in equal measure: hope and despair. The next day, nighttime. Student dormitory, Makoto's room. Makoto Naegi lay upon his bed, desperately struggling with the despair and hope churning within him. Monokuma had forced the students to watch each watch a DVD earlier that day. Makoto showed a scene that suggested his parents and little sister were in danger, and he now found himself determined to leave the school. It seems the other students were forced to watch shocking videos of their own. Videos so shocking that they were now determined to escape the school too. Oh, this is actually where Sayaka comes into his room and asks to exchange rooms, right? Even if it meant sacrificing someone to do it. However, it was obvious that these videos were part of Monokuma's trap. As long as a student killed someone, they were allowed to graduate and leave the academy. It seemed that the mastermind controlling Monokuma was hell-bent on making the students kill each other. But right now, Makoto was most worried about Sayaka Maizono, who seemed to be incredibly distressed after watching her DVD. Sayaka wasn't just the ultimate pop sensation. She was also Makoto's classmate when they were students at Blackroot Junior High. Her optimism had been encouraging to Makoto these past few days, and he was becoming a similar source of strength for her as well. If nothing else, I have to at least save Sayaka. As soon as Makoto thought that, he suddenly felt a small headache. Was he still reeling from being punched by Mondo the other day? Or was this a side effect of being electrocuted by the escape button? As Makoto pondered these things, the pain slowly subsided, and he returned to his determined thoughts of escape. Anyway, we all need to work together and... Huh? At that moment, Makoto realized his goal had changed slightly. We all need to? Ideally, it would be best if everyone survived together. However, aside from Sayaka, Makoto never met the other students before. He didn't know if they could even be trusted in the first place. But at that moment, he trusted them without even an ounce of suspicion. He believed they were worth helping even at the cost of his own life. Just like Sayaka. Why? The headache struck again. As if all the blood vessels in his brain were being individually sliced open. Why did I just think that I could trust the others as much as I trust Sayaka? Makoto tried to figure out why his thought process had suddenly changed. Something was wrong. The throbbing pain in his head seemed to synchronize with a strange feeling that something was approaching him. As a ray of light began to form within the dark recesses of his own mind, the doorbell rang. And here it is, Sayaka reaching his room to ask him to trade rooms. Someone's here? He quickly got out of bed, but that only made the headache worse. With no concern for his safety, Makoto carelessly opened the door to his room and came face to face with Sayaka. I'm really sorry to come by so late. Sayaka! The pain. What are you doing out so late? The moment he saw her face, the pulsating pain in Makoto's head began accelerating. He felt like his world was being torn apart from the inside out. Sorry to bother you, but something really weird just happened and... Makoto? What's wrong? You don't look so well. Sayaka was pale and had been trembling when she came to Makoto's room, but she seemed surprised to see that his own complexion was worse than her own. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just... my head. Makoto couldn't finish his sentence. His eyes rolled back into his head as he lost consciousness and slowly fell to the floor. And Sayaka's beautiful voice let out a scream as she stood over Makoto's body. The next day, the nurse's office. The nurse's office is open? That's not supposed to happen until, like, the third or fourth killing. Oh, you're awake! Hey, you okay? How many fingers am I holding up? As Makoto regained consciousness, he was greeted by the sight of fingers adorned with long fake nails being waved into his face. Ah, it's Mukuro. Huh? As I shouldn't have mentioned this earlier, and I think it was implied, but if you have not played the first game, don't watch this, because I'm going to be spoiling things happening left and right, and I already have been, so yeah. You're Junko, right? Hey, why do you sound so unsure? I'm a little shocked to hear you say that. Despite what she said, Junko Enoshima, the ultimate fashionista, was laughing as if she found this all very amusing. Makoto looked around and realized he'd never seen this place before. It looked somewhat like a hospital. 3 beds, including his own, were lined up in the room, with various medical instruments laid all around them. The black ceiling felt strangely oppressive, but as he sat up, Makoto's mind immediately centered on one possibility. Where are we? Did we get rescued? That'd be nice, huh? She replied as she looked away. Junko explained that this was the nurse's office on the first floor of the academy. That Monokuma thing said, "I can't bear to see my precious students getting sick," and opened this place up this morning. Ah, so that's why it's open. But don't you think it's suspicious? What if all these meds are poison? To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised. Makoto remembered his encounter with the escape button and let out a small sigh. So why am I here, Junko? You should thank Sayaka for that. She was here the whole night taking care of you. She was? Junko ignored Makoto's surprise and continued casually talking. But then Taka got all fired up and was like, "We should take turns watching over him." I just happened to be on duty when you woke up. Well, and even then, only because Byakuya ditched. I see. Thanks. Like I said, you should thank Sayaka. Anyway, how are you feeling? Is everything alright? Huh? Makoto thought about it for a moment, and remembered what he had been thinking about just before he lost consciousness. This is kinda weird, but... Actually, it's a really weird question, but... What's up? Junko, we've never met each other before, right? Upon hearing this, Junko's eyes widened, but a few seconds later, she began to laugh. Huh? Are you for real? That pickup line is like so totally played out, you know? Even though she was grinning, a serious look came over her face. Just so you know, you shouldn't expect anything like that from me. I know I look this way, but I take my virtue pretty seriously. No. I mean, I never expected... Well, that's what I figured. It's obvious that you're a total Omega male anyway. Makoto and Junko continued to talk to one another. Although he wondered why Junko was talking to him instead of leaving to get the others, Makoto didn't question it. He just wanted to talk to someone. Anyone. As long as he interacted with his fellow students, he believed that he would learn the truth about what was going on inside his head. 10 minutes later, Junko mostly talked about her alpha males and omega males, her time being homeless, and her past, and her dreams for the future. All of which she mentioned, remember it mentioned that you should talk to Junko at least 3 times. She mentioned all of this in those times when you talk to her, in your free time. But, in particular, I remember her mentioning her being homeless, but she kind of glosses over it and doesn't give you any details. The last topic was a lot heavier than the previous ones, but Makoto's calm demeanor seemed to cheer her up. She smiled sincerely and said softly, "Thanks, Makoto." Maybe it was a sign of gratitude for listening to her troubles, but she kept that same smile as she just blurted out something horrifying. "In return, I promise that if I do decide to kill someone, it won't be you." Don't say scary stuff like that. At least, that's what Makoto thought, but the words that came out of his mouth expressed a different sentiment. "I see. Thanks. But I wouldn't want you to become, the Blackened in the first place." For some reason, Makoto felt the murderous words that came out of Junko's mouth seemed like a natural thing for her to say. She seemed very surprised by Makoto's response and quickly blurted out, "Huh? Are you serious? I was just kidding." "Huh? Oh yeah, of course. Sorry for acting so weird." "No worries, let's just chalk it up to you being woozy from your recovery." She returned to her usual bubbly self, let out a big stretch, and turned to Makoto. "I'm gonna get going. Make sure you don't get killed before the next person arrives." After seeing her off, Makoto lay down in the bed and started thinking to himself. What is this strange feeling? His dull headache continued as his thoughts began to blur. I was just talking to Junko, but I feel like I was talking to someone else. Huh? Who is she? The more he thought, the more it felt like his memories were sinking into a thick swamp. Each throb of pain pulsing in his head felt like a wave on the surface of that swamp. What is this feeling? It felt very unpleasant, as though someone's voice was screaming at him from inside his head. Makoto tried to organize his thoughts and go over everything that had happened to him. But he was interrupted by the sound of a bell. Unlike the dorm rooms, the nurse's office didn't have a doorbell. The bell that Makoto heard was the ringing throughout the entire building.
Ahem, ahem. Testing, testing. Mic check, 1, 2. This is a test of the school broadcast system.
It was Monokuma's voice.
Now that Makoto is finally woken up, please assemble at the gym.
Which normally, this would happen after Sayaka had, the incident with Sayaka had happened. She had been killed, and this whole thing in the gym would lead to Mukuro getting killed. So, let's see how this plays out. Makoto listened to Monokuma's heartless order and got out of bed without complaining. I have to go. He walked one step at a time, in accordance with the rhythm of his throbbing headache. Slowly he walked forward, not knowing if where he was headed was heaven or hell. The gym. Makoto, are you alright? Sayaka ran over to Makoto as soon as he entered the gym. Yeah, thanks. Sorry about yesterday. I guess I really worried you. Please don't apologize. I'm sorry too. I barged into your room when you weren't feeling well. Now that you mention it, said Makoto, what happened yesterday? Sayaka looked away for a brief moment, but immediately turned back, smiled her pop sensation smile, and shook her head. It's nothing. I'll tell you some other time. I was just trying to frame you for murder. Huh? While they were talking, Kiyotaka Ishimaru, the ultimate moral compass, stepped forward, pointing an accusatory finger at Makoto. You're late, Makoto! Explain why you were tardy. Yeah. The other students collectively raised their eyebrows, as if thinking, why is this guy yelling at someone who is sick? However, Makoto just smiled gently and answered him honestly. I didn't feel well, so I was resting in the nurse's office. Can you note that in the daily logbook? I see! That's consistent with my information. If that's the case, then I shall consider the matter settled. The conversation progressed smoothly, and Taka smiled as he kept talking. I'll take full responsibility for recording it. You just focus on recovering. If you ever feel ill, please report to the health committee. Seems we'll need to appoint health committee members after the meeting, though. Taka walked away, mumbling to himself as he opened a daily logbook he found in the academy supply room. Celestia Ludenberg, the ultimate gambler, saw the whole conversation and walked up to Makoto. Despite his unreasonable behavior, you knew exactly what to say to him. Huh? As soon as Celeste said that, it dawned on Makoto. It's true he didn't feel well and he'd been resting in the nurse's office. But when Taka asked him why he was late, even though he should have already known the reason, Makoto didn't feel annoyed or disappointed at all. It was as if he expected Taka to say that. Makoto felt strange that he had accepted Taka's personality so quickly. He couldn't understand why he'd asked Taka something as unnecessary as recording it in the daily logbook in the first place. Why did I say that? It's like I was used to it. His response to Taka's demands came naturally to him as breathing. Why? Every time he tried to think about it, his headache grew worse, as Makoto struggled to think through the pain of his headaches. A black and white stuffed animal jumped out from behind the gym's podium and began twirling around as it spoke in a cheerful voice.
Hey guys, is everyone here?
He sounded like he was about to lead the students on a field trip, but not a single one of them had a smile on their faces. What is it this time? Are we gonna hijack a cruise ship and run into a gigantic worm? Of course, there was one exception. Yasuhiro Hagakure, the ultimate clairvoyant, still believed that the current situation was some kind of planned event. Monokuma just ignored him and continued to address the students with his adorable voice.
Today, I'm going to tell you about our wonderful academy system. System sure sounds like a great word, don't you think? It reeks of danger, just like a bear. I want you all to trample over the deaths of your friends and grow up to have hardened hearts. It's good to be a little naughty. I want you all to grow poisonous personalities. After making his nonsensical introduction, Monokuma moved on to the next topic. With this, he began providing a detailed explanation of the most vile system in the school, the class trial. Now, you can't just kill someone. You gotta kill someone without anyone else finding out you did it. Monokuma talked about his horrible graduation program with casual indifference. But because a killing hadn't happened yet, his lecture didn't instill any despair in the students. As long as a killing never occurred, there'd be no point to the class trial. But no one could really say that a killing wasn't going to happen. And as we know from Danganronpa 1, Monokuma's plan originally wasn't even for Sayaka, to start the killing game. With Leon and how that turned out. It was actually, he probably actually intended for it to go this way, expecting them not to kill anyone so soon, but then he expected, or he had an agreement with Sakura for her to start the killing game. So, this should be interesting. As the students' suspicions began to rise, Monokuma continued explaining the class trial until... Wait, hold on a second. As Monokuma began to explain the executions that would serve as punishment, one girl stepped forward. It's gonna be, quote-unquote, Junko. Junko? As soon as he saw how angry she was, the rhythm of Makoto's headache began to change slightly. And truthfully, we know, of course, it's not Junko, it's Mukuro. You're freaking insane, you know that? The girl continued to complain angrily. She seemed completely different from the smiling person Makoto saw in the nurse's office. Huh? Was Junko always like that? No, she's different. That's how Junko acts, but is that person really Junko? Huh? Wait, what am I thinking? As Makoto struggled with his headache and confusion, Monokuma and the girl continued to argue. So obviously, Makoto's change in mentality is related to the quote-unquote escape button. Is the escape button supposed to have allowed them to remember his school memories? That's all I can think of. But they're still very vague in his head. And even still, the school life that they lived out with the others, he knew Junko, not Mukuro, right? Mukuro wasn't involved in the actual school life at Hope Peak Academy. Or if she was, I don't think that the others knew her, which is the reason that she was able to take over, Junko's place and, all that. I'm pretty sure. It's a little hazy, but I think that's how it went.
What? Are you saying you're not going to participate in the trial? Only punishment awaits such blasphemy.
What? Punishment? I don't know,
throw you into a deep, dark, scary prison or something.
And this is just how the conversation went. Different. The strange feeling he felt was now directed at Monokuma. A prison? No. Excuse me, no. They aren't that kind. A series of images flashed in Makoto's mind, and at first he thought it was some kind of parade. But he quickly realized that was a mistake. What looked like lights were actually buildings engulfed in flames. The red decorating the scene seemed to have come from human bodies. Despair. It wasn't confined to the Academy, or even Japan. Images of worldwide death and destruction flooded Makoto's brain with every throb of his headache. I've seen this before. Besides the indescribable violence taking place in all these images, there was only one thing they had in common. Who are they? They're the ultimate despair. Rampaging terrorists wearing black and white masks were wreaking havoc in these images. They took everything: money, valuables, lives, families, dignity, the past, the future, and possibly even hope. The masks these terrorists were wearing perfectly resembled the face of the stuffed animal arguing with the student before him. Shut the hell up! Say whatever you want. I'm not gonna be a part of this.
Don't be so selfish.
You're the one being selfish. Kill whoever you want. It's got nothing to do with me.
The evil standing here before me. I'm trembling with fear. But I won't give in to such evil. It's my style to stick it out and resist to the very end. If you really want to get out of here, you'll have to go through me first.
Monokuma swung his arms wildly as he charged at the girl with waddling steps. But the girl stomped on the self-proclaimed headmaster of the academy with ease. Oh shit. Are you enjoying yourself now? Pinned beneath the girl's foot, Monokuma looked up into the girl's cold eyes and calmly asked,
Are you?
Huh?
Violence against Headmaster Monokuma is not allowed. You violated a school regulation.
At that moment, a chill ran down Makoto's spine. She's going to get killed. Monokuma's words sounded very threatening to him. It wasn't a prediction or a guess. It was as if he knew the danger Monokuma posed from the start. If this continues, Junko's going to... His mind still didn't fully grasp the situation unfolding in front of him. By the time he realized he was about to remember something, he was already running forward. Oh shit. Gun gear. Junko. The impact of his feet combined with the rhythm of his headache sent his brain and heart into a panic. No. She's different. She's...
I invoke the mighty summon spell. Help! To me, godly spear gun gear!
Monokuma wriggled beneath the girl's foot and let out a scream. At that exact moment, Makoto charged at her and screamed out, Mukuro! Watch out! Huh? The girl dressed as Junko Enoshima widened her eyes in shock. As if to evade the charging Makoto, she jumped back with agility unheard of in a teenage high school girl. And then, right at that moment, countless spears pierced the spot where she'd been standing a split second ago. All the students, including the girl, stared wide-eyed at this sudden turn of events. Spears, too many of them to count, had shot out with the blinding speed from mechanisms installed in the floor and walls of the gym. However, Makoto was unable to notice this. Huh? Why did I call Junko Mukuro? Mukuro? As that thought entered his mind, a sharp, sudden impact struck his side, followed by an intense, deathly pain that ran down his spine and spread throughout his entire body. The spear stabbed into his side, instantly tore his flesh to shreds, and shot out his back, coated in blood and other bodily fluids. At that moment, the black fog that had engulfed Makoto's mind was consumed by death itself. And as his consciousness slowly faded, he remembered everything. Because of the electric jolt and the chemical compound from the escape button. Because of that button he had found by chance. Makoto Naegi managed to escape. He escaped this hopeless game where he and his fellow students had their memories stolen and were forced to kill each other. Of course, that escape is also what led him to his current life-or-death predicament. In the end, perhaps he only escaped from one despair to fall into another. But at the same time, his actions had unintended consequences for one person. The girl living the false identity as her beloved little sister, Junko Enoshima. Mukuro Ikusaba, the ultimate soldier and a member of the ultimate despair. Her past, her future, perhaps even her hope itself, are on the path to despair. And so, the curtain falls on Makoto's story for now. From this point, the story is about a certain girl. A girl who's more pitiful than anyone else in this sealed-off academy. A new curtain, along with new despair, shall now rise. So Makoto died, huh? That was unexpected. I'll just put it that way. Huh? Time had certainly stopped for Mukuro Ikusaba. It was as if everything around her had frozen perfectly still. In the past, She was known as the ultimate soldier. She had experienced this feeling before, during her time with the mercenary group, Fenrir. In situations where she was surrounded by a hopeless number of enemies within the jungle, or in a desert ruin. The charging enemies seemed as though they were frozen in time, which allowed her to claim a decisive victory in all her battles. But this wasn't a battlefield. Sorry about that, forgot to mute my phone. This wasn't a battlefield, so why did this familiar sensation activate once again? In order to understand what had happened, Mukuro slowly tried to assess the current situation from within this frozen world. Junko and Mukuro are both children of despair. But Junko Enoshima, the true ultimate despair, harbors a far deeper darkness within her. Though their last names are different, Mukuro is Junko's older sister, connected by the bonds of blood. She cooperated with Junko's hopeless plan and impersonated her under the pretense of participating in the killing game alongside her classmates. According to the plan, Mukuro was supposed to oppose Monokuma, who her sister was controlling, and be locked into a dungeon as punishment. Isolated from the others, she would then escape the dungeon and perform various acts intended to deprive the students of hope. That was the role she had been assigned. When Makoto succumbed to his headache, Junko ordered her to see if the shock had caused him to remember anything that could make him a liability. He woke up as she was tending to him, so she made small talk with him, but she didn't notice any change in his behavior. Until this point, she was certain that there shouldn't be any problems. Nothing could possibly go wrong. She stomped on Monokuma like her sister ordered her to, and flawlessly spoke the lines that she was taught to memorize. Afterwards, she would fall through a trapdoor into a dungeon, and remain isolated from the other students. That was her role. She hadn't done anything wrong. There were no problems. There were no problems. She repeated that to herself over and over like a silent prayer. But in that frozen moment in time, what she saw was not a trapdoor, but countless spears. One of them had skewered Makoto through his side. Why? Makoto? Why are there spears? Gungear. I would have died if I hadn't moved. Did Junko mess up the plan? No, Junko would never mess up. Was she trying to kill me? Me? Makoto saved me? Why? Why did he say my name? Did his memories come back? Did I not realize that? Did I make a mistake? Is that why Junko got angry? Is this punishment? Is it my fault? Junko tried to kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. Slowly, time came back to her world. Mukuro could feel her face turning pale as she slowly looked towards Makoto. The students' screams rang throughout the gym. Sayaka was probably the first one to scream. But who screamed first didn't matter to Mukuro. Makoto. Why? Makoto was the ultimate lucky student. He had been her classmate for the past 2 years, and now he was a sacrifice to despair. That's right, so Mukuro was in the class with the others. Alright, so he had been her classmate for the past 2 years. I'd forgotten that. I didn't remember if Mukuro was displaced from that or not. Got it. Of course, I should have figured that, because she is an ultimate. So, anyway. It's kind of hazy. It's been a while since I played Danganronpa 1. Not long ago, he had given her an answer of sorts during their conversation in the nurse's office. He was just a pawn in the plan her sister had devised. But now, a feeling of doubt began forming in Mukuro's mind. What did I want from Makoto? As her heart churned restlessly, she continued to think. In return, I promise that if I decide to kill someone, it won't be you. Was I impersonating Junko then? Or did I really mean that? When did I start feeling this doubt? Just now, the moment he saved me? Or when we spoke in the nurse's office earlier? Or when I first confronted him about this killing game, before his memories returned? Or was it even before that? Mukuro stood there, confused and overwhelmed, as Makoto slowly opened his eyes, the spear still impaling him through the side. Mukuro. Makoto, are you okay? Mukuro was no longer impersonating the ultimate fashionista. Looking up from the floor of the gym, Makoto asked, "Why are you dressed up like Junko?" He was smiling. Maybe he couldn't feel the pain anymore. Or maybe he was being affected by something else. But regardless, Makoto ignored the fact that he was dying just to give Mukuro his warm smile. I'm glad you're safe, Mukuro." As soon as she heard Makoto's weak, fading voice, something inside Mukuro snapped. Something within the shell of despair she had built up, an intense emotion began flowing out. "No, this is all wrong." She couldn't hold back that emotion any longer. No. And for the first time in her entire life, Mukuro unleashed a scream into the world. As Mukuro fell to her knees and clutched her head, a small shadow started walking towards her back. The stuffed animal that had been under her foot, Monokuma. His claws were extended, and he was no longer walking with his usual waddle. Instead, he moved like a beast, silently stalking its prey as he slowly advanced within his target's blind spot. As he inched closer to Mukuro, Monokuma raised his razor-sharp claws, crouched on his haunches, and suddenly leapt towards the back of her neck. However, just before those claws could reach the paralyzed Mukuro, a dark shadow moved in from the side and swatted those claws away with one blow. His lunge deflected. Monokuma was sent flying through the air, spinning wildly before crashing into the wall. Is it Sakura? It'd have to be, right? Who else could do that to Monokuma?
Damn you! What are you trying to do?
Yep, sure enough. Sakura Ogami, the ultimate martial artist, had just prevented another tragedy. She stood before Monokuma and addressed him in a loud, booming voice. "Not only did you attempt to kill Junko for violating school regulations, you even attacked Makoto, who had nothing to do with this. If you plan to continue acting in such a savage manner, there is no reason for us to play along with your game." Byakuya Togami, the ultimate affluent progeny, smirked condescendingly at Sakura. "Fool. One could say you've now violated school regulations with your senseless actions." He looked as if he honestly did not care if his fellow students lived or died at all. She merely deflected the headmaster's attack just now, so I do not think it truly counts as an act of violence. Like Byakuya, Celeste seemed unfazed as she chided him over his words. However, the banter between the two was enough to stir the stunned students to action. "Makoto!" Sayaka was the first to run over towards Makoto, who lay bleeding from his stomach. But Monokuma stopped her, shouting in a tone of voice that seemed completely out of character. "Be careful! Don't get too close to those two!" Huh? Startled by Monokuma's desperate tone, Sayaka and the others stopped moving almost instinctively. The students looked around at each other. Instead of his usual playful gait, Monokuma walked towards them with deliberate, methodical steps. And then he suddenly blurted out something that took everyone, including Mukuro Ikusaba, by surprise. "I'm sure you're probably confused by this sudden turn of events, but I want you guys to work together." What the hell is happening? I guess I should still use the Monokuma voice, but just, with less of a devious inflection.
"I'm sure you're probably confused by the sudden turn of events, but I want you guys to work together."
As Mukuro slowly turned her head towards Monokuma, he pointed at her and yelled,
"Mukuro Ikusaba and her accomplice Makoto Naegi are the terrorists responsible for locking you all inside the academy."
Once again, time stopped for Mukuro. But this time, she wasn't the only one affected. Everyone seemed to be frozen in shock. Damn, man. That's fucked up. After a few seconds of silence, Aoi Asahina, the ultimate swimming pro, spoke first. "Huh? You're kidding, right? I mean, Makoto is a terrorist? That's impossible! And who's Mukuro, anyway? I mean, that's Junko." Monokuma began slowly explaining to Aoi.
The real Junko must be in prison somewhere in this school. Worst case scenario, she might be killed. Mukuro must have researched which of you would be easiest for her to impersonate and hid among you all by pretending to be her. She was probably trying to make sure the killing game went smoothly. Suddenly, Monokuma's hands and feet began jerking in an awkward motion as he looked to the other students and introduced himself. I'm Besiki Madurai, the ultimate hacker. I'm your upperclassman. I hacked into the academy from the outside and was finally able to take control of Monokuma's body just a little while ago. Take control? From who? From the head of the terrorist organization that's controlling this robot from the outside.
What? What are you saying, Junko? Mukuro trembled as she heard the words coming out of Monokuma's mouth. For a brief moment, she clung to the hope that her sister wasn't trying to kill her. But as soon as that hope was born, it was immediately consumed by despair. Junko had the power to transform hope into despair. She would never let anyone hack her that easily. There was only one explanation. Junko Enoshima was pretending to be someone named Besiki, in order to frame Mukuro and Makoto. It was as though Junko was using Mukuro's survival as a branching path to lead the students to a different despair. And man, is she quick to think about this. Like, wow. Monokuma continued talking, telling the students more lies designed to prod them into action.
On your first day at Host Peak Academy, you guys were exposed to sleeping gas, knocked unconscious, and taken hostage. Mukuro and Makoto are probably the only operatives and the terrorists sent inside the school. That means they probably know how to escape from here. And then Monokuma... that's not quoted. And then Monokuma turned to face Mukuro. Mukuro Ikusaba was a member of a mercenary group called Fenrir. She's a wanted criminal who's killed over 10 people associated with the school. So don't get soft and think you can capture her alive. In fact, that's exactly what the cops told me. So the moment I saw an opening, I tried hacking the trap they set to try to kill her, and tried to kill her.
But what about Makoto? Monokuma gave a cold and motionless answer to Sayaka's question.
My guess is a measly little ultimate lucky student didn't stand a chance of defying a group like Fenrir. He was probably threatened and forced to cooperate before you entered the school. Or judging from his earlier actions, maybe Mukuro seduced him.
Sayaka's face went pale when she heard that answer, and immediately stopped talking. Mukuro raised her head and shouted, "You're wrong! Makoto isn't a terrorist! You all have to believe me!" The whole gym fell silent. And then, as if he was speaking for everyone there, Taka stepped forward and nervously asked, "Hold on! What do you mean Makoto isn't a terrorist?" "It sounds like you're saying there's no doubt that you, in fact, are a terrorist." "I ask that you correct yourself at once and say, 'We are not terrorists.'" Celeste began expressing her own doubts as well. It is strange. Does it not seem odd that she is so protective of someone we all met a few days ago? Mukuro stood in silence. The other students' faces began to fill with suspicion and doubt as they realized they weren't looking at the real Junko Enoshima. Byakuya pushed his glasses? I think they meant glasses, and began coldly pointing out what seemed out of place to him. "I heard that fool Makoto, or whatever his name is, call you Mukuro instead of Junko. How would Makoto know that your name is really Mukuro if he had met you not that long ago?" "That's..." "I've also heard of Fenrir," continued Byakuya. "As I recall, its members have a tattoo somewhere on their body." Instinctively, Byakuya's words put Mukuro into a calm state of mind. In hostile situations, her defensive reflexes as the ultimate soldier often manifested themselves. Mukuro's tattoo was on the back of her right hand. She wondered how she could hide this from the other students, without also calling attention to it. But in the end, this concern was in vain. If the police's records are true, she should have a tattoo on the back of her right hand. Oh, that's Monokuma.
"If the police's records are true, she should have a tattoo on the back of her right hand."
as Monokuma freely divulged that information. "All right!" cried Taka, in a voice filled filled with enthusiasm. "Show us the back of your right hand to prove your innocence!" Monokuma dispensed another unnecessary remark.
Make sure you look real close. She might have covered it up with foundation.
Junko had ordered Mukuro to hide her tattoo with foundation, so Monokuma's information was entirely true. There was nothing Mukuro could do except stay quiet. However, she wasn't staying quiet because her identity was about to be exposed. She was struck by the realization that her sister was completely serious about pinning this on her. Alright guys, and I have no idea how long this little novelization is going to be. I call it little, but who knows, maybe it's not little at all. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for the first episode of Danganronpa IF. And man, is it interesting. I'm loving this so far. It's almost like a fan fiction, like an official, I mean not official, it's not canon obviously, but you know, a fan fiction of the game, but written professionally. It's really good, everyone's really in character, and you know, it's still like a fanfic in that the characters know things that they shouldn't know ordinarily within the timeline, but again, like I said up front, it's an IF storyline, so it's fun to look at. I'm enjoying it a lot. Hope you guys are as well. So as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all next time.